app.jsx for now. Inside of here, we'll have to import a few things that we're going to use later on to connect to stream chat. So let's say import stream chat from stream-chat. And we're going to also need the React component, which is going to be import chat in curly braces from stream chat React. Later on in our app, we're also going to use cookies. So we can say import cookies from universal cookie. Great. Now we have all of the imports right here. To set up our chat, we're going to need an API key. So we can say const API key is going to be equal to, and now we need to find this key inside of our stream dashboard. As you can see, the key is right here. You can simply copy it, go back, and paste it right here. We're going to use this to initialize our chat. Now that we have that, we're going to remove this h1, and we're going to give a class name to this div. Div class name is going to be equal to a string of app__wrapper. And inside of there, we're going to render .chat application. Chat is not going to be a self-closing tag. We're going to put something in there. More specifically, we have to put the channel container and the channel list container. These are all going to be components that we are going to create. So let's simply specify them right now. We're going to have a channel list container, which is going to be a self-closing component. And below that, we're also going to have channel container. Again, we don't yet have those components, but we're going to create them right away. Also, for this chat to work, we need to create an instance of a stream chat. So we can do that right here above our component. We can say const client is equal to stream chat dot get instance, and then we can call that as a function and pass in the API key. Finally, we can specify client is equal to client. We can also choose a theme of our application. In our case, I'm going to say theme is equal to theme light. This is going to make our chat application look a bit better right out of the box. Okay, we've set some things up, but we don't have access to these components. So what might be best is to create a components folder right away and to create the basic structure of all the components that we're going to have. There are going to be quite a lot, but if we nail down all the components and the imports at the start of the video, it's going to be so much easier to simply keep using them later on. So inside of the components folder, we can first create two components, the channel container and the channel list container. So right here, new file, channel container.jsx, and also channel list container.jsx. And you guys often ask me, what is the difference between JS and JSX? There is none. I just prefer to use JSX for whenever a file is a React component. That way it's easier to differentiate them. Okay, with that said, we can create a simple React arrow function component and we can specify the name of that component like this. Now that we have it, it's going to be simple to simply copy and paste this across all the components we are about to create. We can paste it here as well, and you can double click the name of the component, press Ctrl F, and then simply change it to something else. In this case, that's going to be channel list container. Great. The two components we need right now are done. So if we go to app.js, we can simply try to import them like import. That's going to be channel like this. Let me just copy it. Channel list container. I misspelled it there, so let's fix it. Channel list container from /components / channel list container. And the other one is simply going to be channel container. Great. As you can see, we only have two, so this is fine. Two imports, two lines. But later on, we're going to have so many more imports and it's going to look like something like this. This is not what we want. So we're going to create a system for imports that's going to make our life easier in the long run. If we go in our components folder and create a new index.js file, inside of there, we'll be able to export all of the components automatically. We can do that by saying export curly braces, default as, and then the name of the component, something like channel container from, and then we point to that file. We can now duplicate this, and inside of here, this is going to be channel list container. Great. Now these components are being exported straight from the components folder, and inside of our app, we can say something like this. Import, now in curly braces, that's going to be channel list container and also channel container straight from /components. We don't need to add any file names because everything is being exported from there, and now all of the imports are being done in one line. There we go. Again, I know this was a bit of work, but it's going to make our life so much easier later on. At this point, we should already see something on the screen. So let's open up our terminal by going to View, Terminal, clearing the console, and simply running npm start. This is going to start our application on localhost 3000. There we go, our application started, but as you can see, we don't have anything on the screen yet besides these two text elements. So let's go ahead and add some styles to fix that. At the end, this application is going to look great. But to keep this video focused and extremely informational only about building chat applications, I'm going to provide you with the entire CSS style sheet. We're going to use the BEM methodology. BEM is a CSS methodology that kind of helps everybody understand how CSS class names are made. We first have the block, and then we have underscores with the element, and then finally we have modifiers. So you're going to learn how to write these class names, but I'm going to provide you with the styles. To create the styles, we can go inside of our source folder and create a file called app.css. Inside of there, we're going to paste our styles. All of the styles for our application are here. You can find these styles, and all of the links mentioned in this video are going to be right below in the description. So just make sure to check that gist and simply copy and paste these styles right into the app.css. Then we can go inside of our app.jsx, and right inside of here, you can simply say import /app.css. This is going to import all of our styles, and we'll be able to use these class names to immediately apply them. Great. Let's check out if this made any changes already. No, nothing special that we can see. It just removed some margins and made everything appear in a list. But of course, as we add more styles and class names, this application will start to look phenomenal. With that said, the basic layout of our application has been created. Now is the time that we keep adding more JSX, more structure, but more importantly, keep getting into the logic of how we can implement our chat application. Let's start with creating our channel list container, which is basically our sidebar. Now, let's first import a few things from Stream Chat React. We can import a channel list component and also use chat context. That's going to be coming from stream-chat-react. Then we can import a few components that we are going to create ourselves, something like channel search, also team channel list, and finally team channel preview. These components will be coming from /, from our components. And finally, in this component as well, we're going to use cookies. So we can say import cookies from universal cookie. Great. Now that we have that, let's start creating our JSX for the sidebar. So above our current channel list component, we can create a new functional component, which is going to be called sidebar. Our sidebar can have an instant return, so just parentheses right there. And then inside of there, we can start creating some JSX. First, we're going to have a div that's going to have a class name equal to channel-list__sidebar. And inside of that div, we're going to have one more div, which is going to have a class name, which is going to be equal to channel-list__sidebar__icon1. And just one more div inside of it. This div is going to have a class name equal to icon1__inner. Great. Finally, we have that icon. So that's going to be an image, which is a self-closing tag. It's going to have a source, src equal to hospital icon. This is the icon that we're going to import right away. And it's going to have the alternative text equal to hospital. And finally, it can have width equal to 30. Great. Now that we're here, let's also import that icon. Just at the top, we can say import hospital icon from /assets/hospital.png. As you can see, we don't yet have the assets folder, so let's create it right now. Above the components, right inside of the source folder, you'll be able to simply paste the assets folder. As with all the other files mentioned, the assets folder is going to be linked in the description. Great. As you can see, that assets contain a few SVGs, which are going to be our icons, and then it also contains a few PNG icons, screens, and images. Great. Now we can use that icon. Now I'm going to copy this sidebar icon 1 and duplicate it below. This time it's going to be sidebar icon 2. Icon 1 inner is going to remain the same, but this time we're going to have a logout icon. Also, the alt is going to be equal to logout, and the width is going to be 30 pixels. For now, we can simply duplicate this line and say import logout icon from, and that's going to be logout.png. Great. This is it for our sidebar. Now we can go inside of our channel list container. I'm going to make this div a simple React fragment, and then inside of there, we're going to render that sidebar as a self-closing tag. Make sure it's spelled correctly, and there we go. Of course, we could have put the entire code right there, but as our code is going to get more complicated, we want to differentiate different parts of JSX to make it easier for people to read. Now that we've done that, let's go into our browser and let's check it out. As you can see, this already looks just a bit better. Now we no longer have the channel list container, which is actually just the navigation bar, and now we're displaying it. Now let's keep adding more things to our navigation bar. The second thing we're going to add is going to be another functional component called company header. Again, just a functional component with an instant return, just parentheses. And then inside of there, we're going to have a div. That div is going to have a class name equal to channel-list__header. And inside of there, we're going to have just one paragraph tag, which is going to have a class name equal to channel-list__header and then __ text. Again, this is going to be a medical pager, so we can specify that there. Finally, we're going to render that company header right inside of the div below the sidebar. So we can create that div, give it a class name, which is going to be equal to channel-list__list__wrapper. And right inside of that list, we can render our company header. Let's save it and take a look. As you can see, we added this entire portion, and just below, we'll be able to display our search and all of the channels. So as you can see, Stream is not simply building everything out for you. It's giving you access to the APIs, which are going to allow you to search channels, create channels, send messages and everything else. But you actually create the JSX, the layout, and the styling for your application. Now let's implement these three most important components: the channel search, theme channel list, and theme channel preview. We can start with channel search. I'm going to go to our components folder, create a new file called channel search.jsx. Of course, as soon as I create it, I'm going to duplicate one more line inside of our index, and I'm going to add our channel search right there. Don't forget to do that, because this import right here is not going to work then. With that said, how do we implement a channel search? Well, our channel search is going to be a functional component, so we can simply import React, create that functional component, and export it. Alongside React, we're going to also need use state and use effect hooks. And we're gonna need the context from stream chat react. So we can say use chat context, and that's gonna be coming from stream chat react. Inside of here, we're also gonna have one icon. So we can say import in curly braces search icon, and that's gonna be coming from /assets. Great. Now let's start creating the JSX for our search. This div is going to have a class name equal to channel -search __ container. Inside of that div, we're going to have yet another div, and this div is going to have a class name equal to channel -search __ input __ wrapper. Now inside of that, we're going to have one more div, and this div is finally going to have a class name of channel -search __ input __ icon. In there, we can place our SVG icon by saying search icon and calling it like a self-closing tag. Now, of course, below this div, we can actually place our input. So I'm going to say input, and it's going to have its own class name, which is going to be equal to channel -search __ input __ text. Of course, we'll have to provide it with a few more properties, things like a placeholder equal to search, a type equal to text, and finally, we have to give it a value and also the on change. Now that we can see we have a lot of props on this component, I'm going to simply space them out, each in its own row. Okay, so as we said, input has two most important things, and those are value and on change. So what value is this input going to have? Well, it's going to be query, the search query we're looking for. And what are we going to do on change? Well, we're going to call the on search function. So just above, let's create that query state field. I'm going to say const, open pair of square brackets, and that's going to be query, and set query is equal to use state, and at the start, we can set it up to be empty string. Below that, let's create that method for getting our search. So we can say const on search is equal to, we're going to get an event there. And what we can do is simply first call the event.preventDefault. We have to do this every time that you have an input or buttons or things like that, because the usual browser behavior is whenever you click submit or something similar to reload the page. We're working with React. We want everything to be reactive, instantaneous, and we want to prevent that. So that is what this line is doing. Now that we have that, what we can do is we can also set the loading to be equal to true. Of course, the loading is going to be another state. So I'm going to duplicate this one and simply create a state field of loading and set loading. At the start, our loading is going to be set to false, so we can do that right here. Now that we've set the loading to true, we can finally set the query. So what exactly are we searching for? Well, we're searching for event.target.value. Remember, in React, whenever you type something into the input, you get the value of that text under the event target value. And finally, the last thing we want to do is we want to get the chat channels. For that, we can call a new function called getChannels. To that function, we of course also have to provide the searched query, so we can simply say event target value one more time. Of course, you can see this function is not yet existent, so let's create it. Const getChannels. This function is going to be an async function because we have to wait for the channels to be fetched. Now that we have that, it's going to accept the text we're searching for. And inside of here, we can open a try and catch block. We'll try to get the actual channels. If we cannot, we'll go to the error. So if we have an error, we can simply set the query to be equal to nothing. Just reset the search. But how exactly are we gonna get the channels? Well, we have to do that later on because we haven't yet set up our entire chat application. So I'm simply gonna add a to-do right here, and I'm gonna say fetch channels. By the way, if you're wondering why is this comment orange, that's because I'm using an extension called Better Comments. I find it to be pretty useful. If you want to have a to-do, you can just type to-do, or you can make something green like this, or even add an exclamation mark to make it red. So it's just coloring the comments basically. We have our to-do here. That's something we have to do later. Of course, we have to do it once we actually have the logged in user to the chat, and once we have a few chat messages, direct messages, channels, and so on. So for now, the important part is that our JSX is done. Later on, we're gonna implement the logic. Before taking a look in the browser, I just noticed that I have a typo here. That's gonna be assets. Now that we fixed that part, let's actually use our channel search inside of our channel list container. We are importing it, but if you scroll down, you'll notice that we're never using it. So to use it, we can call it as a self-closing component right here. So to use it, we can call it just below our company header as a self-closing component. Let's save it and take a look. There we go. Our search bar with the search icon is right in here. Of course, if you start typing something, it's not gonna work because we don't have users yet. So now let's create the layout for the channels and for direct messages, and then we'll move on to the channel container. Next component on our list is the team channel list. So inside of the components, let's just create it, team channel list.jsx, and we're again gonna use the RAFCE to simply create a functional component. Inside of here, we won't have to import a lot of things. This is just a list. So what we can do is simply import add channel. This is going to be an SVG icon from /assets, and that's going to be it. So now let's create the JSX of our channel list. So right inside of here, we'll have a lot of variables that we can work with. And how are we gonna pass them? Well, they're gonna be passed for us by using stream. So let's go back to our channel container. We named our component team channel list, but notice that we also have the channel list coming from stream chat react. So if we scroll down, let me show you how we're gonna call it. First, just below the company search, we're gonna call the channel list. Channel list is a self-closing component, but it accepts a few props. First, it accepts filters. Filters is an object that's going to allow us to filter some messages. Then we're also gonna have the channel render filter function. This is a function that we can call, and based on that, we can also pass some filters. So again, right now, I'm gonna leave this empty. And finally, the most important thing is the list. So we can say list with a capital L. That's an important part. That means that we want to render a custom list. We can do that by providing a callback function. We get access to all the list props right inside of here. And finally, we can render the component we've created, which is called the team channel list. So basically what's happening is Stream allows you to get a channel list component right out of the box. It's gonna look good, but we still want to create our own custom team channel list. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're getting all of these list props, and we can simply spread them right here. So that's gonna be ... list props inside of the curly braces. That means that our custom component will get all the props that the channel list would usually get using Stream. Now, when it comes to filters, I'm simply gonna put that as an empty object right now. And for the channel filter function, we're gonna just leave that as an empty callback function, just like this. Let's save it, and now let's make use of all of these props we're passing to our team channel list. Going right in here, now we can get access to them. The first prop that every single React component has is the children property. Then we're gonna have the error, which we're gonna set to false at the start. We also have the loading, and we also have the type. That type is gonna be dependent on are we in group chats or just direct messages. So let's first handle the errors. At the top, we can say if error, we're gonna return something, but before we have to check out the type. If the type is equal to team, then we want to return an error message like this. Right here, we'll specify the JSX. And if it's not team, we simply want to return null. it doesn't exist. So how is the JSX for this going to look like? Well, right here, let's create a div, and that div is going to have a class name, which is going to be equal to team-channel-list. Below that, we're going to have one paragraph tag. So p tag, that's going to have a class name equal to team-channel-list__message. And inside of there, we can simply say connection error, please wait a moment and try again. Great, that's about it for the error. Now we can actually create the loading part. So just below this if, we're going to create if loading. Inside of there, we're also going to have a return statement. And let's return the same div that we already have. So we're going to copy the div with a paragraph and paste it right here. This one is going to be team channel list message, but we're going to add loading to this. So it's going to be space loading. And then finally, instead of the error message, we're going to open a dynamic block, and we're going to say if type is triple equal to team, in that case, we want to say channels, else we want to say messages. And then finally, we're going to add loading ... This is our loading. Now that we've handled the error state and the loading state, we can actually show our lists. So this div is going to have a class name equal to team-channel-list. Below that, we're going to have one more div, and this div is going to have a class name equal to team-channel-list__header. And as we had so far, we're going to have one more paragraph. So let's create a paragraph tag. And this p tag is going to have a class name equal to team-channel-list__header_title. A lot of underscores there. So what we can say is we can simply copy this dynamic block, paste it here, and if it is a team chat, in that case we can simply say channels, else we can say direct messages. That's about it. And below this, later on, we're going to have a button to add the channel. Right now we're going to leave that blank, but later on, you know, it has to be here. And finally, outside of this first div, we want to render the children. Everything that has been passed to our team channel list, we want to render it right here. Great. With that, we are almost done with our team channel list component. Let's go into our index.js and let's export it from there so that we can use it in our channel list container. That's going to be team channel list. Now that we are exporting it, let's see where we are using it. That's going to be in the channel list container. As you can see, at the top right here, we're importing it and we're using it right here and passing all the list props. But remember, we also have to pass the type. The type is going to be equal to team. We have to do that specifically because below we're going to have this exact same channel list, but the type is going to be messaging for direct messages. So we need to be able to differentiate them. Let's save it and take a look. There we go. Right now we have connection error. Please wait a moment. That makes sense because we haven't yet connected anything, but we have it here for later on. Now we also have to implement the last component in this file, which is the theme channel preview. So let's create that component called theme channel preview.jsx. Not to forget, let's go to the index and let's quickly export it from there. That's going to be theme channel preview. Back in here, we can run rafce to get our simple code running. The situation with our theme channel preview is going to be the same as with our theme channel list. We're going to get a lot of props that are going to get passed into it. So by going here, we can simply specify one more prop, which is going to be called preview, and that is going to be equal to a callback function with an instant return. Right there, we get preview props, and now we can render our own component, which we called theme channel preview. Now we can spread those props, so ... preview props. And finally, we also have to pass the type, which is going to be the same. Type is equal to team. Now that we have all the necessary components in our team channel preview, we can go back and we can use them right inside of our props. The props we need for now are going to be channel and also type. Great. Inside of this component, we'll also use a few more things from Stream Chat React. So we can say import, and that's going to be avatar for images, and also use chat context. And this is coming from stream-chat-react. Now that we have these things, let's actually use that context. So right inside of here, we can say const. The things we need to get are going to be the channel and also the client. That is coming from use chat context, and we call it as a hook. I'm going to rename the channel right here to say active channel, because we're already getting a channel at the top. With that said, let's create a block of JSX, which is going to be called channel preview. So right here, channel preview. As we've done before, it's going to be a functional component just to simplify the life for us later on. And inside of here, it's only going to be a simple paragraph tag with a class name, which is going to be equal to channel-preview__item. And there we can say hash or £, and we can specify the name of the channel. We can get to the channel name by saying channel.data.name. I'm going to add a question mark before the dot for the data and the name to make sure that we have the channel before we want to access something else. Or maybe the channel doesn't have a name. In that case, we can use or and then say channel ?.data ?.id. This is a preview for the channel with multiple users. But now let's create a preview for direct messages. We can do that by saying const direct preview is going to be equal to, and then we instantly return it. And there we're going to have const members is equal to channel.state.members. But unfortunately, the data that we get back is not going to be an array. While you might think we're going to get an array with different objects like this, what actually happens is we get back an object like this, and then that object has the IDs 1, 2, 3, and then there's the user object. So it's going to look like this because each user has a specific ID, and then based on that, we're going to show their data. So what we need to do is we need to turn an object with, again, objects as keys and values to simply an array of objects that we can map through. So let's remove this, and let's use the built-in JavaScript object.values. That's going to give us the values of all the items in that specific members object. Once we get that, we also want to filter through that. So we can call the filter method. Filter accepts a callback function. And in this case, we want to filter through the members. So in here, we get each member. But to get to the data about that member, we have to destructure it and then specify the user. So this is how we're accessing each specific user in that object. Then we want to check if the user.id is not equal to client.user uppercase ID. Make sure that you have the ID all uppercase and close the parenthesis properly. So what we're doing here is we're mapping over all the users and we're keeping all the ones where the ID is not equal to the client ID, which is our ID. So we're basically throwing ourselves outside of that chat so we can get the actual users we're talking to. I've noticed this is not going to be an instant return, so I can just switch this to curly braces. And in that case, we have to remove one parenthesis. Great, now we have the members, but they're not including ourselves. So right inside of here, let's return a block of JSX. We can say div. There we're going to have a class name, which is going to be equal to channel-preview__item and then space single. Inside of there, we're going to specify our avatar. avatar is just the user's image. So inside of there, we can pass the image property, which is going to be equal to members 0 and then ?.user.image like this. Finally, we can also pass the user's name, which is going to be members0.user and then .full name. Make sure to add question marks before all of these because we always need to know that the user actually exists. Finally, we can specify the size, which can be equal to a number of 24. Finally, below this avatar, we can also have a p tag, and then in here, we can list our member's name. We already have that, so I'm going to copy the name and just put it here. Now we have the channel preview and the direct preview. Let's actually use these components inside of our team channel preview. So this div is going to have a different class name depending on if the current chat is selected or not. So we can say class name is equal to, we're going to put it as a dynamic block. In here, we can say channel .id, and if it's triple equal to active channel .id. So if they are the same, our class name is going to be channel-preview _ wrapper _ selected. Else, it's simply going to be channel -preview and then _ wrapper. It's not selected. Of course, this also has to be a string, and with that, we've entered our class name. So, still inside of our div, we're gonna add an onClick property. On our click, we're gonna, of course, select the actual channel, but for now, we can simply console log the channel name. So we can say channel right here. Great. And then, of course, inside of this div, dependent on the type, so we have to say if type is equal to team. In that case, we're going to render the channel preview. And then if it's not, we're going to render the direct preview. Great. This is it for our component for now. Of course, I don't think any chats will be showing because we don't yet have the users. So soon enough, it might be a good time to actually start implementing the logic for creating the authentication, getting our users in there, and displaying the data. So for now, let's go back to our channel list container. Considering that we don't currently have any chats, unfortunately, the preview is going to be empty. Below this channel list, we need to create one more exactly the same channel list. Below the channel list for group messages, we also need to have a channel list for direct messages. So simply select it and then duplicate it below. We're going to have just a few small differences. For example, in the list, we're going to render the team channel list, but the thing we're going to pass over is going to be messaging. So that's the type of the actual team channel list, and you can simply paste that here as well. So now, once we actually get everything to work, you should be able to see two different channel lists, one for the group messages and one for the private ones. Right now, we still have an error, and that makes sense because we are not currently logged in, we don't exist in the database, and there aren't any channels or direct messages. So